Hello everybody and welcome to Tokaryk Lake on a strange but beautiful day. I hope the mic's doing its job because it's gotten a lot windier since I was first here. Interestingly enough, this is my second trip to the lake today. Still a beautiful day, but really weird. Right off the hop, I want to apologize for any camera image quality issues. Got all the way to the lake and discovered my camera didn't have its memory card in it, so that made for a good start to the day. Had to boot 20 minutes back into another the nearest town really, to go to a hardware store where I could pick up a memory card because rural living. Anyway, welcome to the pilot episode, the inaugural episode, whatever you want to call it, of the Lost Lures Fishing Show. I was hoping to get a lot more of these up this year, but I wanted to actually catch a few fish first, which I have actually succeeded in doing. I'll have a few clips from my camera on my phone throughout this, showing you some of the less than whoppers that I have pulled out of the lake. That said, it has been a really good year for me comparatively. I have learned to fish perch fairly reliably, and I catch at least one almost every time I come here. Now that said, this is supposed to be a stocked trout lake. When I first came up here to start fishing, everybody was complaining because they can't catch any trout because all these darn perch in the lake. So I figure I might as well target the pest because I'm obviously not catching any trout. And I've done a lot of looking on that what's that website, YouTube or something like that, and there are a lot of really good ways to cook up these little perch that I'm catching. So I'm gonna have to go out and get myself a couple of fillet knives until I find one that I like and all of that jazz. But today I wanted to show you where I have been fishing this year, give you a quick look at the equipment I am currently using, and I don't know why, it just seems like every fishing show I watch, people are like, this is the rod I'm using and this is the kind of line, and so we'll go through that and then I'll show you where I'm actually fishing. So the one rod I find myself using the most is this stupid cheap Zebco telescoping rod. I'm sure I picked it up from one of the big box department store situations, probably under $30. It casts really nicely though for as cheap as it is. I have no idea what weight the line is on here, but I suspect it's heavier than I need for what I'm doing, so I'm eventually going to respool that. I've also got two cheap combo rods. Neither of them are really worth hunting down the name, but they are apparently medium action 4 to 10 pound test rods. That one I just had there is a whopping 4'6". This one beside it is a whopping 5'6". So I think I might need to get something in the 6 to 7 foot range at some point. But at my current skill level, there's really not much point in spending any real money on what is ultimately just kind of a kill time hobby. This was a combo set. I really hated the reel that was on here, so I nicked this thing off of a little $20 ice fishing rod that is still in the back of the Jeep really, and it's really smooth. I'm kind of thinking about putting it on the slightly longer rod, but at the same time I'm kind of thinking about just waiting until I get something like I say 6.5, 7 feet long and slipping it on there, because it also casts really nice and smooth, kind of like this crappy little Zebco. Okay, then I've got this big old Plano box, tackle box. So what, right? I got a box of jigs and lures in there that I don't use, because ultimately I do three things here. I float fish, and I have caught quite a few perch just floating along, sitting in my chair having a good time, and I've been doing assorted botched versions of drop shot fishing, I think they call it. This is totally rigged wrong, and yet it worked the other day. So I've got my weight, and then my lure bait, if you will, hangs on there. As far as bait, I have been successful with 3 things. I have only 2 of them today. The first is your classic minnow. I had to go to 4 different stores to find somewhere that actually sold minnows. So these things come frozen. The perch don't actually seem to like them all that much, but that said, they have struck a few times on them, so I just kind of keep them around. What has been working surprisingly well for me, aside from worms, because like every perch everywhere will go for worms, I got a chunk of frozen pork liver here, and I got in huge trouble when I was out here with Shocks. And we were having a lovely date. We got busted by the fish fuzz. We were just hanging out, having a good time. I learned a few valuable lessons. Okay, so on that note, PSA, if you're fishing in Manitoba, barbless hooks, obviously. Anywhere in Canada, I think, is barbless hooks. But make sure you really do a super duper good job of crimping them down, because the fish cops might just come at those things with a microscope. And if there's a little tiny bit of a barb remaining on there, there's a real good chance they might threaten you with a $50 fine. Okay, the additional thing that I learned on top of that was apparently here in Manitoba, you're only allowed to have one stick in the water per person per license. I had 2 in at the time, so he threatened me with a $100 fine for that. So that's a big no-no, makes your fishing hobby a lot more expensive. So yeah, if you're going to be fishing here in Manitoba, stick to one stick, and yeah, make sure you get rid of those barbs, because some of those fish fuzz are, I don't know, are a little anal retentive. Anywho, so yeah, that's a quick look at my gear. It's a quick look at my bait, and now let me show you where I'm fishing, and probably a few of those pictures from my camera on my phone about what I have caught here, because, you know, I can't guarantee that I'll have clips of me pulling anything in, but I hope. So let's get started. So as promised, here's just kind of a quick panorama from the pier. This seems to be the only public access point to this little lake. Like I say, it's a stocked trout lake, so people do come down here with their boats, and there are a couple of nice reedy patches out there that I would love to get floating so I can tackle. But mostly we've got a lot of these reeds growing around the edges, and then underwater we've got an awful lot of that milfoil? I don't know. That invasive weed. So next time the fish cops are around, I'm actually going to talk to them about the legalities of harvesting that for my garden compost. But that is a garden thing, so you won't find out much more about that here. Anyway, the water sort of seems to drop off fairly steep-ish about here. This is where it came to the top of my hip waders, so I went no further. And oh, see, look at that. This frustrates me, and hopefully if you can only take one thing from my attempts at fishing, take this. Please clean up after yourself, you know, and if you happen to see some other idiot's been there and they haven't cleaned up after this, take a second, snip it off, you know, just, oh, that aggravates me. You go out and you're trying to relax. Because let's face it, the whole point and purpose of fishing for the vast majority of us, especially people like me who very rarely actually catch a fish worth eating, is to go out and relax and get a little nature in, you know? But if you're cleaning up other people's litter, it really takes away from that relaxation. Anyway, I am going to try and relax. I'm going to put together a jig, and we are going to throw some liver into the water. I'll show you what I do with that, because I hear that's kind of a weird one. People look at me funny when I tell them I'm buying the liver for fishing. So yeah, I'll show you that, and we'll get to fishing. Hopefully catch something. Alright, so this knife's a little big for the task, but it's an old camping knife that I had. Like I say, I gotta go out and get a fillet knife. But basically, I'm just cutting this liver so that it kind of resembles little kind of worm chunks. And using that, once it dries out on the dock a little bit, it becomes a little, I don't know, less gross to handle. Shar there loves the idea of me using liver for fishing, because it means I'm not going to be trying to sneak it into the food. Anywho, so yeah, gotten some basic liver bait there, lots of fun. So there's a quick look. Once I get it sliced into the strips, I cut it down even smaller, because I've discovered these perch like really tiny hooks and really tiny bait. But you might be asking, you know, if worms work so well, why am I still using grocery store liver? And the answer is quite simple. There's really no bait for sale in RRM. I cannot find a bait shop anywhere. Therefore, I cannot find live worms for sale anywhere. And yes, I have a lovely garden where I could harvest them from, but they are working hard to keep my garden going. So no. Liver, on the other hand, wife won't eat it. Might as well get some fish. She'll eat the fish. So bending down to deal with the tripod here. Since I've had the most luck with it here, I'm starting off with just a basic little float system, 2 feet down. I've got the smallest hook I can find in my tackle, and here we go. And a little bit of liver hanging off that, doing the I'm a worm thing. And really, all I do is just drop it off the edge here, and it's pretty wavy today, so it's going to be doing a lot of bobbing. I don't have a lot of faith in my luck today, but we're going to try anyway because it's a beautiful day. So as you can see, it's a very wavy day on the lake here today. We'll see. Hasn't been any unusual weather for the last few days. I'm hoping the float is at least in view of the camera here. Not a lot to it, really. Just start panning down a little bit. That's been quite interesting. There's a little muskrat who kind of hangs around here. Gives me some grief some days, so that's always fun. A little chipmunk runs around screaming his little head off. So between the chop on the lake and the low battery on the camera and the glare on the lens, I think we'll get back when I may or may not have something to show you, or, you know, something semi-profound to share. Alright folks, we're in luck today. You are my lucky viewers. Thank you so much. This itty bitty perch, obviously going to go back in. I'm going to let him loose as soon as I can here. Poor thing's just freaking out, but went for that little piece of pork liver. I've only been at it maybe 5 minutes since I turned off the camera last. So if you recall my fishing in Manitoba adventures, hang on little guy, hang on, or my attempts to fish back in the Okanagan Valley, there you go, be free. Alright, you know that I am completely chuffed by how quick that was and the fact that I've actually caught something. So excited I caught something for you today. Let's try and catch something worth keeping. Going to use that same piece of liver that still kind of seems okay to me. So, yeah, let's fly. Well, it looks like I have caught the same fish again. Might be a little bit smaller than that last one. This guy really put it in there though, so come on, be free. Something bigger would be nice. Let's get you a little bit further out there. Maybe we can catch something a little bit bigger. Know if you're even seeing this bobber floating on by. If not, I imagine I'll be editing this clip out. Delightful that I've already caught 2 little tiny perch so far. I mean, yeah, sure, they're tiny, but they're catching something, right? After so many years of catching nothing, it's nice to catch something. And one thing I guess I will share with you, hopefully the bobber is in the float is in the shot for this, is I have noticed with these perch, you've got to be hyper aware of what's going on with your float. You definitely want to make sure that the float and all of the weight beneath it are well matched, because they're going to be pretty light when they hit on that thing, unless it's a decent sized one, which I have yet to catch. I mean, if you're watching this, you probably know who Evo is, and I'm not fishing Lake Erie, but that boy has given me dreams and aspirations. Anyway, my little tiny perch don't bite like that. My little tiny perch kind of get this itty bitty nibble, and that bobber might drop maybe an inch in the water, and I got about 1.5 seconds to snag that sucker up before it's gone, usually with my chunk of liver. So, I mean, that's another reason I don't like to risk worm. See, look at this. Even as we're talking, I got robbed. I was robbed, man, I was robbed. So hopefully that's in front of the camera, totally clean. Need a new chunk of liver. one more cast, one more perch. Let's get this guy up here so I can set it free. Again, I'm not catching lunkers here, but I am having a good time catching some fish. No. All right, that one's free on the chair. Gotta go get that. All right, so we rescued this little guy from the pier. Again, it's beautiful little fish. I'm catching lots of little fish today, but let's get him back in the water. There you go. You kind of missed that the first time around, buddy. Straight down he goes. Where there's one, there's more, so I'm hopeful. A little choppy today, but doing better than I expected. Wow, okay, I don't know if I just lost that last clip or not, but I just caught my perch. Choopy, leave those alone. All right, and yeah, just like that, as I was bringing in my personal best perch, definitely of the year and probably of my life. That said, maybe 9 inches, maybe 10 inches. I didn't measure it. Really need to keep a ruler in my gear, I guess. Yeah, so the camera died. I don't know just yet how many clips were affected by that, so I'm gonna go find out while I edit this and let you know. Otherwise, I had a great day fishing. I was still at it for a couple more hours, and ultimately I only ever used that one 5'6" medium heavy rod and my little float setup with my liver. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna run downstairs and find out how that actually worked now that I've got some charge in the camera and I was able to make this closing clip from up here in the studio. Now I'm pretty sure I have to get the cat out of the closet, so that's gonna be fun. All right, everybody, I will see you in the next one, and hopefully have a little more control over my camera setup. Yep, that was the cat. All right, gotta get him out.